This is my channel SHYSDESIGNS and I'm Cheyenne. I started this business because I wanted to stay home with my babies and make money while doing that. I'm here to breathe life back into furniture and make beautiful pieces affordable again. So, let's get started. To open up this video, we have a leather sectional couch here, my biggest and most expensive flip to date. I'm so excited to get started on this one because it really pushes me out of my comfort zone, because I will be diving into the deep end with all of these repairs I have never tried before and trying new products and new techniques. So stick around and let's see how it went. First, I stripped the leather sealer coat. I used the highest proof rubbing alcohol I could find and acetone to remove the coat. Removing the coat before applying the paint makes for a more even coat of paint and a better texture in your finished product. I removed the coat with a towel and a scrubby sponge for the rougher parts. I moved on to cleaning behind the buttons. I used flossing picks because they are plastic and they were delicate to the leather. So I knew they wouldn't damage the leather, but they would still get the job done. And it worked really well. This is actually a hack, and I saw these flossers in my bathroom and I thought this would be perfect. And I just had to share it with you guys. One of the button areas had a small tear, so I ended up pulling that leather back a little bit where it was torn, and then I placed a small amount of leather adhesive. Then I took my finger and wiped it down so that it would lay down like normal, and it worked perfectly. It hasn't moved, it hasn't opened back up. This adhesive for the leather specifically works really well. I removed all of the buttons because none of them were salvageable to use on the top of the cushion anymore. They were just way too damaged. Since the buttons underneath are the same and in perfect condition, I used the underneath original buttons for the new top buttons, and I put the original top buttons on the bottom. Next, I vacuumed all of the debris left behind by the buttons and any dog hair or sand that was already in the base cushion with my little green machine. Deep clean that I needed to give it because there were quite a few stains I needed to remove. I love using this machine. It always does a great job and it's so easy to use and it dries super quick. After cleaning one part of the sectional, I moved on to replacing the buttons I cut off, which is called tufting, and something I've never done before and was very nervous about. The whole process actually turned out to be pretty straightforward, but I didn't leave that task without getting a few blisters and string burn. No biggie though, for a great result. I moved on to removing the rest of the dog hair and matted fabric that was left behind. I started with a fabric shaver to see what I could get off with the tool, and it worked fantastically. I went back over the parts that weren't 100% and I used a stiff brush and a vacuum, and then I went over those areas with the fabric shaver again to accomplish a completely deep cleaned couch for the next owners to come. Now moving on to the second part of the sectional. I again started by removing all of the buttons and used the underneath original buttons for the new top buttons, and I put the original top buttons on the bottom. And any missing buttons, I did replace them. I again vacuumed this part of the sectional and then I deep cleaned it as well. I don't want to leave anything undone because I want this leather couch to look and smell its best when I sell it. Next, I had a huge tear to fix on the second part of this sectional. Since I'm not great at hand sewing by any means, I was going to use leather adhesive to put this back together. But for the benefit of you guys and the benefit of this couch lasting as long as possible, I decided to give it my all and sew this seam back together. I'm not gonna lie, it took me an hour because I was learning how to do it and doing it at the same time. And I was just completely nervous at the turnout because this tear is in a very noticeable spot on the couch, the top. So for this I bought a leather sewing kit to get a needle thick enough to puncture the leather, and it came with thicker thread, which I needed because if I had thinner thread I would have broken it a couple of times and sewing the seam would have taken me way longer. Overall, pulling each tail at opposite ends and seeing this seam come together like it did was so satisfying. After fixing that tear, I moved on to one of the easiest parts of this couch flip and the cheapest, which was plumping up these cushions without having to put any extra stuffing in them. My thought behind this was that I'm sure this couch was plush when the previous owners bought it in the first place, so there should be plenty of stuffing in there with me to work with without having to buy more. That thought process paid off because without having to spend a dime, I made all of these look brand new. I took each cushion out one at a time and I found or made a hole in the cover of the stuffing. I placed one hand inside the cover and one hand outside the cover. After my hands were placed, I started tearing the stuffing apart. This is honestly something that you can do at your home while you're even watching this video. It won't cost you anything except a little bit of your time. If it has a weird smell, you can even wash and blow dry it dry if you desire to get that fresh smell as well, like I did for my first couch flip to help me get rid of my smoke smell. I cleaned and conditioned my leather to further prepare the leather for repairing and painting. I used a soft bristle brush to scrub the leather and then I wiped away the grime with a microfiber towel. I started with this leather repair compound by Heirloom Traditions. The directions told me to lay it down with a flexible spatula and then to smooth it out with a glove dipped into water. So, because there were not any cracks in the leather, I was able to do a thin coat of leather repair to fix the peeling and the completely worn leather, which was fantastic because that meant less sanding on the back end to be done. The compound gave me the ability to fix all of the existing issues with the leather and get a nice soft surface to work with and a nice even layer to apply paint to. This is kind of like spackling a hole before you prime and paint a wall. I started with the base so that after the leather was painted, I wasn't dragging it all up the floor. I sanded all of the rough spots first and I wiped it back with a towel. Then I painted each side with an all-in-one black paint called Caviar. This paint is matte and I wanted it to stay that way after I applied my matte wax coat to the base as well to protect the paint while I was doing the leather part of the piece. I wanted the leather to really showcase by itself, and the matte black paint will enable the base to disappear into the shadows and let the gorgeous sectional leather color shine. I used my matte wax finish by Magnolia Homes to finish off my base matte look and to protect my paint color while I work on the leather top. There are some pretty obvious indentions that I definitely had to try and fix. So again, I used heat from my blow dryer and it actually went a lot better than it did on my ottoman. I got out almost all of them with this technique, so you should be able to do this at home as well. No need to buy a heat gun or anything special. Just a blow dryer or even a damp towel and an iron if you don't have a blow dryer, so that you can get the indentions out of your couch as well. Make sure to keep the iron moving if you decide that route so you don't burn your leather. I sanded the surface with a fine grit sandpaper and sanded back until the surface felt smooth, but not too far that it would take away from the compound that I put on top of the leather to prevent further peeling. Now onto painting the leather. Instead of chalk paint this time, I decided to use all-in-one paint. Because I don't do couches very often for you guys, I want to switch it up so that if you have any questions about using anything differently, I have tried it for you and I have told you my honest opinions, and you can feel more comfortable or less comfortable using a specific product based on what I tell you. I have seen it done with all-in-one paint a few times, and I wanted to try it myself to see how well it actually works. All-in-one paint is a primer, paint, and sealer. So you're not supposed to have to do anything beforehand, and you're not supposed to have to do anything after you already have it on. And it's supposed to apply really well. I used my own color, and I got it matched at Lowe's using Valspar. It is a very warm brown color, and I honestly love this color. I ended up applying the paint with a large chalk paint waxing brush, and it really helped with the application. It made it really comfortable for me, and it made the application of the paint really, really even. I started with a light coat of paint to get a nice finished application. I made sure all the nooks and crannies were covered so that when I went back to dab my paint, I didn't have any missed spots. And I wouldn't have to cover it more than twice, because the more paint you put on the piece, the more chances it has to get stiff and lose the texture that you're looking for. Lying the ottoman on its side gave me the opportunity to apply the paint evenly on the inside and keep the top and bottom from touching while it was drying. I used a stiff cardboard piece to really get a crisp edge on the lip because I did not want any missed spots, because I don't want this piece to look painted. Next, I used a moisturizer that I really like, and it smells like oranges. After touching up each side, I sanded down each side with a fine foam sander. Using this sander gave me the ability to sand without doing any damage to the paint or the leather. After sanding back any rough edges and getting back down to the natural texture of the leather, I added a leather lotion to rehydrate my piece completely and continue to get that silky smooth texture that I'm after. For the leather sectional, I decided to thin out the paint a bit more and apply more coats to get a more pliable and even coat in the end result of the look of the paint. Because I noticed with the ottoman going on so thick, it dried really quickly and didn't give me a lot of time to maneuver it around the ottoman and give me that smooth flat surface I wanted. Comparing the chalk painted leather couch pros and cons to the all-in-one painted leather sectional pros and cons will be a huge bonus to helping you make the decision towards what you need or want for your own leather pieces needs. So I will definitely be sharing that with you guys. I also tested the scratch resistance for this paint because I noticed when I would scratch the last couch that I did with chalk paint, if I scratched hard enough, it would start to come up. But with this paint, phenomenal, and nothing happened. It was amazing, and I'm so happy with that. And that's before I sealed the leather with a conditioner and everything. So that is a really great sign. I am truly happy with how this turned out. Despite all of the challenges with the leather condition and the fact that I had to use a lot of new products to make this piece look and feel amazing. And I think the combination of the compound being super thin and the durability but flexibility that the all-in-one paint gave me gave this leather sectional the new life that it needed. On to the pros and cons for the leather paints that I have used on my last two couch flips. Starting with the all-in-one paint. The pros of using this paint on leather is that it is super durable. It stays pretty flexible with the leather. It is smell masking, It has fantastic coverage. It doesn't create any cracking or peeling. And after regular use of the couch, the paint, instead of wearing away, becomes much softer with use, and I love that. The cons, it's not as flexible as the chalk paint, and I don't love that about it. Sanding is required to get a good feel in the beginning of using this paint after you've painted the leather, and the paint needs to be watered down by about a 2-to-1 ratio in order to be workable around the surface without drying too fast or getting sticky and creating rough spots. These paints alike, they both have really good coverage. I enjoyed using both of them because of that. They both have really easy touch-ups, so if you accidentally scratch it too hard or sand where you didn't want to or whatever, both have really easy cleanup and upkeep, and both do not crack or peel. Both of them are really flexible and really comfortable to use and sit on and lay on and everything. Using this all-in-one paint with the leather repair was a bit tricky because in the gathered areas the leather repair would crack. So I think in the future that I would use as thin of a coat as possible. I would not use it on a gathered surface. I would only use it on a flat surface, and I would use it very, very sparingly. Now on to the chalk paint. The pros with using chalk paint is that it is super flexible and keeps the true soft, amazing nature of the leather. There is no sanding required. And like I said, that texture is kept, and that makes me really, really love using the chalk paint. The only cons that I would have for the chalk paint is that it's not smell masking. So if you have a certain smell that you want to get out of a couch, like smoke, it won't get rid of it because it is a very airy and flexible and open and breathable paint. Chalk paint is also super dry, so to keep the leather conditioned over time, you will need to give it a really, really good condition every few months, which I mean you would need to do with a regular leather couch, but up front, in order to get that really nice, good texture, you would definitely want to over condition basically. And unfortunately, the chalk paint is not as durable. So I noticed that if I scratched hard enough, like if an animal were to jump on the couch and rustle around a little bit, it might pick up some of the paint. Which products would I use again and how? I would use all of the products again. I would probably take all-in-one paint and my chalk paint transformer to make chalk paint to keep that flexibility, but to use the all-in-one's durability factors and possibly make a really rich and yummy and perfect paint for leather. And the leather repair was great for touching up those peeling or missing leather patches so that the paint wouldn't have this weird after effect over fabric rather than over the smooth leather. So I liked it for that factor, but like I said, I would definitely just use it on flat surfaces, or if I needed to tuft a piece again, I would probably just keep it taut, use the leather repair, and then tuft it after it's dry and painted and everything, so that I could possibly prevent that cracking next time. Like I guys told you, this was my biggest and most expensive piece to date. I spent $520 on this total furniture flip. That was such a huge and scary risk for me, but I am loving the outcome. Factoring in my time, I probably spent upwards of 20 hours on this because it needed a ton of work. So my break even would probably be around $800 to $1,000. Because of the size, material, condition, and finish of this leather, I think I can safely put this on the market for $2,000. I sold the leather couch for $1,800, and that makes my profit $1,300. So this huge flip turned out to be my most profitable one yet. So I am just ecstatic with the amazing people that buy my pieces and the wonderful people that watch my videos and continue to come back and give me 10K views on my very first video that I produced, which is my leather couch video. I am so happy and so grateful and love seeing the continuous rise in subscriptions and views and comments and love and support. I hope you enjoyed these and happened to learn something. Please leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. I post every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. See you then!